My name is Sarah Vance, and if you saw me today sitting in the corner office of a glass skyscraper in Manhattan, wearing a bespoke Armani suit and signing contracts worth millions, you wouldn't believe how my life looked 10 years ago. You wouldn't believe that the woman staring back at you from the pages of Forbes once sat on the floor of a studio apartment eating generic cereal with water because she couldn't afford milk. But to understand the victory, you have to understand the defeat. And my defeat had a specific date, time, and smell. It was Tuesday, October 14th, and it smelled of rosemary and lemon roast chicken. I remember the day with a clarity that still stings. I was 50 years old. I had spent the morning at the salon getting my highlights touched up because Richard had mentioned in passing that he liked lighter hair. I had spent the afternoon shopping for ingredients at the expensive organic market, selecting the perfect free-range chicken, the crispest asparagus, the most expensive bottle of Cabernet. Richard had called me from the office at 3:00 p.m. "Sarah," he'd said, his voice brisk and businesslike, "make sure dinner is ready at 7:00 sharp. I have news. Big news." My heart had fluttered. Big news. Richard was a regional sales director, but he had been gunning for the VP position for years. I thought with a naive, pathetic hope that this was it. I thought we were going to celebrate. I set the table with the good linen napkins, the ones we had received as a wedding gift 25 years ago. I polished the silver. I lit the candles. I put on the dress he used to say he liked, a blue silk wrap dress that hid the softness of my stomach, a softness earned from bearing his 2 children. At 7:05 p.m., the front door opened. "Richard," I called out, forcing a brightness into my voice that I didn't feel. "I'm in the kitchen. The wine is breathing." He walked in. He didn't come to the kitchen to kiss me. He didn't comment on the smell of the food. He walked straight to the dining room table and placed a thick manila envelope on his placemat. Then he stood there loosening his tie with a jerky, irritated motion. I walked out, wiping my hands on a towel. "Honey, is everything okay? Did you get the promotion?" He looked at me. It was a look I had seen him give to waiters who messed up his order or to telemarketers on the phone. It was a look of utter, detached annoyance. "No, Sarah," he said. "I didn't get the promotion. Yet." "Oh," I said, my smile faltering. "Well, that's okay. We can still—" "Sit down," he interrupted. I sat. The chair felt cold. The candle flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls I had painted myself. "I'm leaving," he said. It was so abrupt, so matter-of-fact, that my brain refused to process it. "Leaving for a business trip Tokyo again." "No," he said, exhaling sharply through his nose. "I am leaving this house. I am leaving this marriage. I am leaving you." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I looked at the roast chicken, golden and perfect, in the center of the table. It looked ridiculous now. Obscene. I don't understand," I whispered. Our anniversary is next month. 25 years. "Exactly," he said. 25 years. A quarter of a century. It's enough, Sarah. It's been enough for a long time." "Is there—" I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "Is there someone else?" He didn't even flinch. He didn't look guilty. He looked relieved. "Yes," he said. "Her name is Jessica. She's my new executive assistant." "Jessica," I repeated. "How old is she?" "She's 24. I felt a physical blow to my chest. 24. She was 2 years older than our son Jason. She was barely a woman. "Richard," I said, my voice trembling. "She's a child. This is a cliché. You're having a crisis." "It is not a crisis," he snapped, slamming his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. "It is a correction. I am 52 years old, Sarah. I am at the peak of my career. I am vital. I am energetic. And I come home to this." He gestured at me, at the table, at the life we had built. "What is wrong with this?" I cried. "I have made a home for you. I raised your children. I managed your finances. I gave up my career at the agency so you could travel. And I appreciate that." He said, his tone patronizing, like he was speaking to a slow child. "You were a perfectly adequate mother. You ran a decent house. But Sarah, look at you. He leaned forward, and his eyes were cold, hard flint. You're tired. You're slow. You talk about gardening and book clubs. You wear comfortable shoes. Jessica is fire. She has ideas. She has ambition. She looks at me with admiration, not expectation. He paused, and then he delivered the blow that would haunt me for a decade. I need someone younger, Sarah. Someone fresher. You're just expired. Expired. Like a carton of milk, like a coupon, like something that had served its purpose and was now starting to rot. The papers are in the envelope, he said, straightening up. My lawyer drafted them. It's a standard separation agreement. I'm generous, Sarah. You can keep the car. I'll pay the mortgage for 3 months. After that, well, you'll have to figure it out. 3 months, I whispered. Richard, I haven't worked in 20 years. How am I supposed to? That's not my problem anymore, he said, picking up his briefcase. You're a smart woman, or at least you used to be. Go get a job at Walmart. Be a greeter. It suits your skill set. He walked to the door. He didn't look back. He didn't say goodbye to the dog Buster who was sleeping in the hallway. He just opened the door and walked out into the rainy night. I heard the engine of his new Porsche, the one he bought last month for business, roar to life. And then, silence. I didn't move for an hour. The candles burned down. The chicken went cold. The congealed fat turned white in the pan. Expired, I said to the empty room. I stood up and walked to the hallway mirror. I turned on the harsh overhead light. I looked at myself, really looked. I saw the gray roots I had tried to hide. I saw the soft curve of my jawline. I saw the wrinkles etched around my eyes, wrinkles from worrying about his cholesterol, his stress, his career. He was right. I looked tired. I looked used up. I sank to the floor in the hallway, pulling my knees to my chest, and I let out a scream that tore my throat raw. The next 3 months were a slow-motion car crash. Richard wasn't just leaving. He was erasing me. He moved in with Jessica immediately. They got a penthouse downtown. He stopped answering my calls. He communicated only through his lawyer, a shark named Mr. Sterling, no relation to Richard, just a coincidence of cruelty, who seemed to enjoy making me cry. Mrs. Vance, the lawyer told me in our first mediation session, my client feels that alimony is an outdated concept. You are an able-bodied woman. Why should he subsidize your inactivity? Inactivity, I choked out. I managed a household for 25 years. I raised 2 children. Yes, and the children are grown. The lawyer smiled thinly. The job is done. The contract is fulfilled. They hid assets, accounts I didn't know about, investments in shell companies. Richard had been planning this for years. He had been siphoning off money while I was clipping coupons to save us 50 cents on detergent. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had almost nothing. I got the minivan, a 2015 Honda Odyssey with a dent in the bumper. I got half of our very depleted joint savings account, about $15,000. And I got the house. With the mortgage payments I couldn't afford. I tried to keep the house. God, I tried. It was the only home my children had ever known. I applied for jobs. Resume gap, the recruiters called it. 20 years. A young woman at a staffing agency asked me popping gum. Wow, that's a lifetime. What have you been doing? I was a chief home officer. I tried to joke using a term I read in a magazine. She didn't smile. Right. Well, we don't have much call for domestic management. Can you code? Do you know Python, SEO, TikTok trends? I can learn. Yeah, she said, tossing my resume into the no pile. Everyone says that. Next. The rejection letters piled up. Overqualified, too old, not a culture fit, too old, looking for a digital native, way too old. The foreclosure notice came on a sunny Tuesday, exactly 4 months after Richard left. I packed my life into boxes. I sold the furniture on Craigslist. Strangers came into my home and haggled over the dining table where we had eaten Thanksgiving dinners. Will you take $50 for it? A man asked. It's got a scratch. It's solid oak, I whispered. It cost $2,000. Take it or leave it, lady. Take it, I said. Just take it. I moved into a studio apartment on the edge of the city. It was above a laundromat. The smell of dryer sheets and exhaust fumes was constant. The carpet was a suspicious shade of brown. The refrigerator hummed so loudly I had to wear earplugs to sleep. My children, Jason and Kelly, were in college out of state. I didn't tell them how bad it was. "Mom's fine," I told them on the phone, forcing a cheerful tone. "I'm downsizing. It's an adventure. The new place is so cozy." I didn't tell them I was eating instant oatmeal for dinner 3 nights a week. I didn't tell them I spent my days crying in the shower so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 6 months post-divorce. I was working. I had finally found a job. I was a telemarketer. Me, Sarah Vance, former marketing director of a mid-sized firm, graduated magna cum laude. Now I sat in a cubicle farm with 50 other desperate souls wearing a headset that pinched my ears reading a script to sell extended car warranties to people who hung up on me. $12 an hour. The manager, a boy named Kyle, who looked like he hadn't started shaving yet, had told me. And commission, if you're good. I wasn't good. I was polite. "Hello, this is Sarah calling about your vehicles." Click. "Good evening, I'm calling to..." "Get a real job, Grandma." Click. "Grandma." That word hurt more than the hang-ups. I was 51 now. Was I a grandma? Was that all the world saw, a gray-haired relic taking up space? One Friday evening after a grueling shift where I hadn't made a single sale, I went to the grocery store. I had $20 to last me until Tuesday. I walked the aisles calculating. Bread, $2.50. Peanut butter, $4. Apples, $3. Milk. I reached for the milk, and then I saw it. A magazine on the rack. Business Weekly. And there on the cover was Richard. He was smiling. He looked tanned. He was wearing a tuxedo. Beside him was Jessica. She was wearing a silver gown that looked like liquid mercury. She was radiant. The headline read, "The Power Couple, How Richard Sterling and Jessica Miller Are Revolutionizing Regional Sales." I froze. My hand hovered over the milk. He had used my ideas. I read the subheadline. "Sterling credits his success to a fresh perspective and innovative strategies developed in the last year." I knew those strategies. We had talked about them over dinner back when he still talked to me. I had sketched them out on napkins for him. "You should pivot to a subscription model, Richard," I had said. "It's safer revenue." And he had laughed at me. "Stick to the laundry, Sarah." Now he was selling my ideas as his genius with her on his arm. I felt a wave of dizziness. My chest tightened. I dropped the milk. The plastic jug hit the floor and burst. White liquid exploded everywhere on my shoes, on the magazine rack on the floor. "Clean up on aisle 4, a cashier shouted, sounding annoyed. People stared. A woman with a baby looked at me with pity. "Oh, honey," she said, "it's just milk." I fell to my knees. I tried to scoop the milk up with my hands, sobbing. It wasn't just milk. It was everything. It was my dignity. It was my life spilling out on a dirty linoleum floor, and I couldn't put it back in the jug. The manager came over. He was kind, but firm. "Ma'am, please, leave it. Just go." Yow. I ran out of the store. I left my basket. I left my dignity. I walked home in the rain, milk drying sticky on my pants. I got back to my apartment. It was dark. The laundromat downstairs was closed, but the neon sign, "Open 24 hours," blinked on and off, casting a red strobe light into my room. Buzz, click, buzz, click. I sat on the floor. I was wet. I was cold. I was broke. I looked at the bottle of sleeping pills on the nightstand. It would be so easy. Just go to sleep. Stop the noise. Stop the humiliation. Stop being expired. Richard was right. I was useless. The world belonged to the Jessicas, the vibrant ones, the ones who didn't smell like spilled milk and failure. I reached for the bottle. My hand was shaking, and then my phone buzzed. It wasn't a call. It was a notification, a memory from Facebook. 10 years ago today, I clicked it almost automatically. It was a photo of me and my daughter Kelly. She was 12. We were building a science fair project, a volcano. I was covered in baking soda and vinegar, laughing my hair messy. Kelly's caption added years later when she tagged me, "My mom is the smartest person I know. She fixed the structure when Dad wanted to give up. She's the glue." The glue. I stared at the photo. I looked at my eyes in the picture. They were bright. They were intelligent. They were solving a problem. I put the pill bottle down. I stood up and walked to the bathroom mirror. The lighting was harsh, unflattering, fluorescent. I looked at the woman staring back. Yes, she had wrinkles. Yes, she had gray hair. Yes, she looked like she had been dragged through hell backwards. But she was still there. "You are not expired," I whispered. My voice was raspy from crying. I said it louder. "You are not expired." I thought about wine. Cheap wine goes bad. It turns to vinegar. But fine wine, the good stuff. The stuff Richard pretended to know about. It gets better. It gets complex. It gets valuable. "I am not expired," I said, my eyes locking with my reflection. "I am vintage, and vintage is expensive." I thought about Richard's strategies, my strategies. I thought about the young recruiters. They didn't see me. They saw a number. They saw 50. But what did I have? I had patience. I had raised 2 toddlers while managing a budget during a recession. I had conflict resolution skills. I had refereed teenage fights and negotiated with contractors. I had resilience. I was standing here, wasn't I? And I had rage, a cold, hard, burning diamond of rage. I walked out of the bathroom. I went to my small, wobbly desk. I opened my laptop, an old Dell that wheezed when I turned it on. I deleted my resume, the one that tried to hide my age, the one that apologized for the gap. I opened a new document. At the top, I didn't write Sarah Vance, seeking entry-level position. I wrote Sarah Vance, strategic consultant, specialty crisis management, and brand resurrection. Experience 25 years of managing chaos. I wasn't going to ask for a job anymore. I wasn't going to beg Kyle, the 20-year-old manager, for shifts. I was going to build something. I remembered a small bakery near my apartment. Sweet Nothings. The owner, Maria, was a wonderful baker, but her shop was always empty. She didn't know how to market. She didn't have an Instagram. She didn't have a brand. I had walked by yesterday and seen her crying behind the counter. I closed the laptop. "Tomorrow," I said to the empty room, "I start with Maria." I went to the kitchen. I didn't have milk. I didn't have bread. But I had a tea bag. I boiled water. I poured a cup. I sat by the window watching the neon sign blink. Buzz. Click. It didn't look like a warning anymore. It looked like a heartbeat. My life wasn't over. The first act was over. The tragedy was finished. Now the second act was beginning. And in this act, the heroine doesn't die. She conquers. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up with a headache and a stiff neck from sleeping in the chair. But I didn't have that heavy, suffocating dread in my chest. I had a mission. I put on my most professional outfit, a pair of black slacks that were slightly too loose now, the divorce diet, I called it grimly, and a white button-down shirt. I tied my hair back. I looked capable. Not vibrant, maybe, but capable. I walked to Sweet Nothings. It was 9:00 a.m. The bakery smelled of yeast and cinnamon, but the display case was full and the shop was empty. Maria was behind the counter wiping a spotless surface. Her eyes were red. "We're open," she said, her voice dull. "I'm not here for a croissant, Maria," I said. "I'm here to talk." She looked at me suspicious. "About what? About why your croissants are the best in the city but nobody is eating them." She flinched. "Excuse me. I'm Sarah," I said, extending my hand. "I live down the street. I've been watching your shop. You bake with your heart. I can taste it. But you're invisible." Maria sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I know. I don't know how to do the internet stuff. Instagram, TikTok. My nephew tried to help, but he just posted videos of himself dancing with my baguettes. It was humiliating." I suppressed a smile. "You don't need dancing baguettes, Maria. You need a story. People don't buy bread. They buy comfort. They buy nostalgia." I pulled out my old laptop. "I can help you," I said. "I'm a marketing strategist. I'm rebuilding my portfolio. I'll work for you for free for 1 month. If I increase your sales by 20%, you pay me $500. If not, you owe me nothing." Maria looked at me. She saw the desperation in my eyes mirroring her own. She saw a woman who needed a win just as badly as she did. "Okay," she whispered. "Deal." That month I didn't sleep. I treated that tiny bakery like a Fortune 500 client. I didn't try to be cool. I didn't use hashtags I didn't understand. I went back to basics. Psychology. I interviewed Maria. I learned that her recipes came from her grandmother in Sicily. I learned that the yeast starter she used was 50 years old. Vintage. Like me. I took photos. Not flashy filtered photos. Honest photos. Close-ups of her flour-dusted hands kneading dough. The steam rising from a fresh loaf. The handwritten recipe cards stained with vanilla extract. I wrote captions. Long storytelling captions. This isn't just bread. This is 1954 Palermo. This is the smell of Maria's grandmother waiting for her grandfather to come home from the sea. I posted them on local community Facebook groups. I targeted the moms groups, women who were tired, stressed, and craving comfort. I created a campaign, the Sunday Morning Reset. Pre-order a box of pastries. We deliver them warm to your door at 8 a.m. You make the coffee. We bring the peace. The first Sunday we had 3 orders. I delivered them myself in my dented Honda Odyssey. The second Sunday we had 10. By the fourth Sunday, Maria called me at 5:00 a.m. She was crying. "Sarah," she sobbed, "stop the orders. I can't bake fast enough. We're sold out." I walked into the shop that Monday. There was a line out the door. Maria handed me an envelope. It was warm, smelling of yeast. Inside was $500 and a free croissant. "You saved me," she said. "No, Maria." I said, my hand closing tight around the cash, the first money I had earned in 20 years. We saved each other. That $500 felt heavier, more substantial than the thousands Richard used to deposit into our joint account. It was mine. It was proof. I wasn't expired. I was just dormant. Emboldened by Maria's success, I updated my portfolio. Case study 300% growth in 30 days. I started applying for freelance gigs on Upwork and LinkedIn, and I hit a wall made of reinforced concrete and prejudice. I landed a Zoom interview with a tech startup in Austin. They needed a brand voice. I prepared for days. I researched their competitors. I had a strategy ready. I logged onto the Zoom call. The camera turned on. The CEO was a boy. He couldn't have been older than 22. He was wearing a hoodie. He saw me, my bookshelves in the background, my reading glasses, my face. His smile faltered. "Oh," he said, "I thought, Sarah Vance." The profile said, "Dynamic strategist." "That's me," I smiled. "Don't let the reading glasses fool you. I can read data as well as I read a menu." He chuckled nervously. "Right. Well, Sarah, look, we're a disruptor brand. We move fast. We break things. Our demographic is Gen Z." "Gen Z buys things with their parents' credit cards," I countered, "and I speak parent fluently." He didn't listen. He asked me 2 perfunctory questions and ended the call in 5 minutes. I didn't get the job. It happened again and again. "You're not a culture fit. We need someone with more digital native energy." "Have you considered consulting for retirement homes?" That one stung the most. I realized then that my work wasn't the problem. I was the problem. My face, my age. In a world obsessed with new, my experience was seen as baggage. I was angry. I wanted to scream. But then I remembered Richard. Expired. If they saw an expiration date when they looked at me, I would take away the packaging. I rebranded. I took my photo off my website. I replaced it with a sleek, minimalist logo of a phoenix rising from ashes. I took Sarah Vance off the header. I renamed the agency Phoenix Strategies. I communicated only via email and Slack. No video calls until the contract was signed. I used my initials S. Vance. They assumed I was a man, or a young, edgy hipster. They assumed S. Vance was one of them. It worked. I landed a contract with a mid-sized logistics company. They needed a rebrand. I did it all via email. I used bold colors, sharp copy. I channeled all my rage into disruptive headlines. They loved it. S. Vance gets it, the CEO wrote in an email to his team, which he accidentally CC'd me on. This guy is sharp. This guy. I laughed. I sat in my studio apartment drinking cheap wine and laughed until my sides hurt. 6 months later, Phoenix Strategies was growing. I had 5 clients. I was working 18-hour days. My eyes were failing from staring at the screen. My back ached. I needed help. But I couldn't hire the kids. I couldn't hire the 24-year-olds who would look at me with pity. I couldn't hire the people who needed to be managed. I needed partners. I posted a job listing, not on LinkedIn, on a forum for women returning to the workforce. The ad read, "Are you overqualified? Are you too experienced? Do you have a resume gap because you were busy raising the future? Phoenix Strategies is looking for you. We don't care about your age. We care about your resilience. No ninjas or rock stars, just grown-ups." I received 200 applications in 24 hours. I read them all. They were heartbreaking. Brilliant women, former VPs, directors, lawyers, accountants, women who had stepped away to care for sick parents, to raise children, to support husbands who eventually left them. Women who were now working as cashiers or Uber drivers because no one would give them a chance. I hired Elena first. Elena was 55. She had been the HR director for a multinational corporation. She was fired 2 years ago because she cost too much and replaced by a software program. She came to the interview at a coffee shop, my office. She wore a suit that was 10 years out of date, but ironed to perfection. "Why do you want this job, Elena?" I asked. "I can't pay you what you used to make, not yet." She looked at me. "Because I'm tired of being invisible," she said. "I'm tired of people looking through me. I want to be seen, and I want to work." "You're hired," I said. "You're my VP of operations." Next was Margaret, 60. A former CFO who had been forced into early retirement. She took over my books. Within a week, she found tax deductions I didn't know existed and streamlined my billing so we got paid in 15 days instead of 45. "Amateurs," she scoffed, looking at my old spreadsheets. "Sarah, we're going to run this ship like the Navy." Then came Susan copywriting 48 divorced, and Patel Data Analytics 52 laid off by Google. We were a team of misfits, an army of expired goods. We met in my apartment. We sat on the floor on folding chairs. We drank coffee from a pot that Margaret brought from home. But when we worked, it was magic. There was no drama, no ego, no "it's not my job." We had all lost something. We had all been humbled, and we were all hungry. We understood the market because we were the market. We knew what mothers wanted, what homeowners worried about, what retirees feared. We didn't need focus groups. We just asked each other. Our Slack channel wasn't full of memes. It was full of support. "My ex is late with alimony again." "Don't worry, Susan. We just closed the Johnson account. You'll get a bonus this month." "My hip is acting up. Take the day off, Patel. I'll cover the data entry." We became a family of women who had been thrown away, stitching ourselves back together into something stronger than before. 2 years in. We were doing well, but we were still small. We needed a whale, a client that would put us on the map. It came in the form of Tech Home, a smart home device company. They were in crisis. Their new security camera had a glitch. It was talking to people. Specifically, it was waking up babies in the middle of the night with robotic voices. It was a PR nightmare. The media was tearing them apart. Their stock was tanking. Their current agency, a cool firm full of 20-somethings, had tried to spin it with memes. They tweeted jokes about Ghost in the Machine. It backfired. Parents were furious. "My child is terrified, and you're making jokes." I saw the news. I looked at Elena. "We can fix this," I said. "How?" "By acting like adults, by acting like mothers." I wrote a proposal. I didn't use jargon. I didn't use buzzwords. I wrote a letter to the CEO of Tech Home. "Dear Mr. Henderson, your customers aren't angry because of a glitch. They're angry because you broke their trust. You violated the sanctity of their nursery. You don't need a spin doctor. You need an apology, a real one, from a parent to a parent." I sent it. 2 hours later, my phone rang. "Is this S. Vance?" a tired voice asked. "This is Sarah Vance," I said. "Can you be in San Francisco tomorrow?" I flew out. Economy class. I wore my one good suit. I walked into the boardroom. It was full of men in hoodies and t-shirts looking panicked. When I walked in with my gray hair and my sensible heels, the room went quiet. "Your Phoenix strategies?" Mr. Henderson asked, confused. I said, setting my bag down. "And these," I pointed to the men in the room, "are the people who told you to tweet memes while babies were crying." The room shifted. The temperature dropped. "Yes," he admitted. "You need to fire them," I said calmly. "And you need to listen to me. I raised 2 children. I know what it's like to be scared in the middle of the night. Here's what we are going to do." I laid out the plan. Total transparency. A recall. A personal video apology from the CEO shot in his own kitchen, not a studio. A fund for affected families to buy white noise machines while they waited for replacements. "It's expensive," the CFO grumbled. "It's cheaper than bankruptcy," I countered. "You're losing trust. Trust takes years to build and seconds to break. You broke it. Now you pay to fix it." Mr. Henderson looked at me. He looked at my lines, my gray hair. He didn't see expired. He saw mother. He saw authority. "Do it," he said. The campaign saved the company. The stock rebounded, and Phoenix Strategies was no longer a secret. We were the crisis fixers, the adults in the room. We moved out of my apartment. We leased a floor in a downtown building. We were real. 5 years passed. I was sitting in my office, my corner office, the one with the view of the Hudson River. I was wearing Armani, silk. It felt like armor. My assistant, a young man named Leo. Yes, I hired young people now too, but only the ones who respected their elders walked in. "Ms. Vance, your car is here for the gala." I walked to the window. I looked down at the city. I thought about Richard. I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. But I knew where he was. Margaret, my CFO, kept tabs on him. Enemy reconnaissance, she called it. Richard's consulting firm had folded 3 years ago. He had been sued by investors. Jessica had left him taking what was left of his liquidity. He was currently working as a mid-level sales rep for a company called Apex Solutions. Apex Solutions was the company I was buying next week. I hadn't planned it, not consciously. It just happened. They were a competitor, but they were weak. They had good tech but bad leadership. It was a smart acquisition. But when I saw his name on the employee roster, Richard Sterling, Senior Sales Associate, I felt a shiver. Not of fear, not of love, of symmetry. The universe has a sense of humor. It's dark and it's twisted, but it's there. He had told me I was expired. He had discarded me because I didn't fit his future. And now I was about to buy his future. My phone buzzed, a text from my daughter Kelly. "Mom, just saw the Forbes article, The Queen of the Comeback. You look amazing, so proud." I smiled. I remembered the milk on the floor, the telemarketer headset, the cereal with water. I touched the glass of the window. It was cold. "Thank you, Richard," I whispered to the city lights. "Thank you for breaking me. I had to be broken to be rebuilt." Leo knocked on the door. "Ms. Vance, we need to go." "I'm ready," I said. I grabbed my purse. I walked out of my office past the bustling bullpen of my employees, women and men of all ages working together. I wasn't Richard's wife anymore. I wasn't the discarded housewife. I was the boss. And next week, I was going to be his boss. The week leading up to the acquisition of Apex Solutions felt less like business and more like the slow, deliberate tuning of an instrument before a symphony. I didn't tell anyone, not even Elena. This was my private war. I spent hours reviewing the personnel files of Apex. It was a mess. The company was bleeding money because they had hired rock stars instead of workers. They had a ping-pong table in the break room, but hadn't updated their CRM in 5 years. And in the middle of it all was Richard Sterling. I read his performance reviews. They were brutal. 2019. Richard struggles to adapt to digital leads. Insists on golf course meetings, which are no longer ROI positive. 2021. Richard was reprimanded for making inappropriate comments about the age of a female client. 2023. Richard is on a performance improvement plan. If numbers do not improve in Q3, termination is recommended. He wasn't just struggling. He was drowning. He was hanging onto his job by a thread, probably trading on old connections that were rapidly retiring or dying off. I sat in my penthouse apartment the night before the meeting, drinking a glass of vintage Bordeaux. I looked at the city lights. "You wanted fresh Richard," I whispered to the glass. "Well, freshness spoils. Vintage endures." I chose my outfit for the meeting with the precision of a general choosing armor. I didn't wear the power red suit. That would be too obvious. Too angry ex-wife. I wore white. A crisp, tailored white silk blouse and wide-leg cream trousers. A statement necklace of raw gold. I looked serene. I looked wealthy. I looked like a woman who slept well at night. White is the color of mourning in some cultures. But for me today, it was the color of a blank slate. The acquisition meeting was held in our main conference room. The glass box, we called it. It floated 30 stories above Manhattan. The apex executives walked in looking like they were marching to the gallows. They knew they had failed. They knew they were being bought out by a superior predator. When I walked in, the apex CEO, a man named Miller, stood up so fast he knocked his chair over. "Ms. Vance," he stammered. It's an honor." I shook his hand. My grip was firm. His was sweaty. "Mr. Miller, let's get this done." We signed the papers. It took an hour. With every signature, I felt lighter. I was buying the company that Richard worked for. I was buying his desk, his chair, his client list, and his future. "There is one condition regarding the personnel," I said, capping my pen. "Anything," Miller said. "We know there will be redundancies." "I want to interview the sales team personally," I said. "Today, one by one." Miller looked confused. "The sales team, usually HR, handles that." "I am a hands-on owner, Mr. Miller. I want to see the whites of their eyes." "Of course. They are waiting in the lobby." I went back to my office. I told Elena to send them in one by one. I was gracious with the first few. A young man who was eager but untrained, I kept him. A woman in her 40s who was terrified of losing her health insurance, I gave her a raise on the spot. And then it was time. "Send in Mr. Sterling," I said into the intercom. The door opened. 10 years. 10 years is a long time. It's long enough for cells to regenerate, long enough for buildings to rise and fall. Richard walked in. The first thing I noticed was the shuffle. He didn't stride anymore. He shuffled. His shoulders were rounded, burdened by the invisible weight of mediocrity. He was wearing a suit I recognized, a charcoal Brooks Brothers suit. He had bought it 15 years ago. I remembered because I had picked out the tie he was wearing, with it a blue silk tie that was now frayed at the edges. He looked dusty. He didn't look at me. He was too busy looking at the floor, clutching his leather portfolio like a shield. "Mr. Sterling," I said. I pitched my voice lower than he would remember, more resonant, the voice of authority. He looked up. He squinted. The sun was behind me, turning my white outfit into a silhouette. "Yes, ma'am. That's me." "Sit down." He sat. He crossed his legs. He tried to project confidence, flashing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was a muscle memory smile, the smile of a salesman who knows he's selling a defective product. "Thank you for seeing me, Ms. Vance, is it?" He didn't know. He hadn't made the connection. Vance was my maiden name. To him, I had always been Sarah Sterling. "Ms. Vance is correct," I said. "I must say," he began, launching into his pitch, "I've followed Phoenix Strategies for years. Your growth is vibrant, truly vibrant." I almost laughed. Vibrant. He was still using the same word, the word he used to describe Jessica, the word he used to destroy me. "Tell me about yourself, Mr. Sterling," I said, opening his file, though I didn't look at it. I looked at him. "Well," he cleared his throat, "I'm a veteran of the industry, 30 years. I bring stability. I bring a Rolodex of high-value clients. I'm not like these young guns. I understand the art of the deal." "I see," I said. "And your numbers. They seem to indicate a decline over the last 5 years. He bristled. "The market has been tough, and Apex, Well, management didn't support us, but with Phoenix, with your resources, I could really shine. I just need a fresh start." "A fresh start?" I repeated. "You like fresh things, don't you, Richard?" He paused. He tilted his head. "Excuse me. Fresh things," I said, leaning forward slightly. "New things, younger things. You have a history of discarding the old, the expired." His face changed. The salesman mask slipped, revealing confusion. I don't understand. Have we met?" "Oh, we've met," I said. "We've met thousands of times. We've met over breakfast. We've met over dinner. We've met in the delivery room when our children were born." He froze. His eyes went wide. He leaned forward, peering through the glare. I reached out and pressed a button on my desk. The blinds lowered. The harsh sunlight vanished, replaced by the soft glow of the office lights. My face was revealed. I looked him dead in the eye. "Hello, Richard." The sound he made wasn't a word. It was a gasp, a sucking in of air, like a man who has just been punched in the gut. He stood up, knocking his chair back. "Sarah," his voice cracked. It was high and credulous. "Sarah, Sterling." "Vance," I corrected. "Sarah Vance. The CEO of the company that just bought your mortgage, your desk, and your job." He grabbed the edge of the desk for support. He looked at my suit, my hair, my office. He looked at the woman he had thrown away. This is impossible," he whispered. You were expired," I offered. "A housewife, unemployable." No. He sank back into the chair. He looked like he was having a stroke. "Sarah, my God, you look incredible." "I know," I said. "It's amazing what happens when you stop carrying 180 pounds of dead weight." He flinched. "Sarah, please," he said, his voice trembling. "This is a lot to take in. I had no idea. I thought you moved away. The kids, they never said." "They didn't want to embarrass you," I said. "They know their father has a fragile ego. They didn't want to tell you that your expired ex-wife was making more in a month than you make in a year." He wiped sweat from his forehead. "So," he said, a desperate smile trying to form. "You're the boss, the big cheese. That's fantastic, Sarah. Really, I'm proud of you." "Don't," I said sharply, "don't patronize me, and don't pretend you're proud. You're terrified." "I am," he admitted, his shoulders slumping. "I am terrified. Sarah, I need this job." "Why?" I asked. "You have Jessica, the vibrant Jessica. Surely she's a VP somewhere by now." He looked at the floor. "She left," he whispered. "Oh." I feigned surprise. "When, 5 years ago, when the consulting firm went under, she said I was too old. She said I was holding her back. She took the liquid assets and left me with the debt. Karma," I said, "is a bitch, but she's a fair bitch. I lost the penthouse." He continued, the words spilling out now. "I'm renting a studio in Queens. I have medical bills, my back. Sarah, I'm drowning. If I lose this job, I don't know what I'll do. I have nothing." He looked at me with wet eyes. "We have a history, Sarah. 25 years. Doesn't that count for anything? Can't you help me? Just keep me on. I'll work hard. I'll report to anyone. I'll do data entry. Just don't fire me." I looked at him. This was the moment I had fantasized about in the shower, in the car, in the lonely nights after he left. I could crush him. I could scream at him. I could tell him exactly how it felt to eat cereal with water. I could fire him and watch him weep. But as I looked at him, I realized something. He wasn't a villain anymore. He was just a sad, broken old man, and I wasn't a victim. If I fired him out of spite, I was bringing the past into the present. I was letting Sarah Sterling make the decision. But Sarah Vance didn't make decisions based on spite. She made decisions based on strategy. "Richard," I said calmly, "I am not going to fire you because you divorced me. I am not going to fire you because you broke my heart. Hope flared in his eyes. "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I am going to fire you," I continued, "because you are bad at your job." The hope died. "What?" "I reviewed your file, Richard. You don't log your calls. You miss quotas. You are rude to the support staff. You resist training." "I can change." "No, you can't," I said. "You proved that 10 years ago. When things get hard, you don't work on them. You look for a replacement. You look for the easy way out. You traded a 25-year marriage for a 24-year-old girl because you didn't want to do the work of growing old with me. You don't have the grit, Richard. You never did." I opened my drawer and pulled out a checkbook. "However," I said, "I am not cruel." I wrote a check. I tore it out. I slid it across the desk. He picked it up. His hands shook. It was for $10,000. "What is this severance?" I said. "Call it a golden parachute for a lead balloon. It's enough to pay your rent for a few months, enough to buy a new suit, enough to find a job that suits your pace." "Sarah," he choked out, "you don't have to do this." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm doing it, to show you the difference between us. You threw me away with nothing. I am sending you away with dignity, not because you deserve it, but because I do." He held the check. He looked at me. And for the first time in 10 years, I saw genuine respect in his eyes, and regret, deep, profound regret. "You're amazing," he whispered. "I was such a fool." "Yes," I agreed. "You were. But that's not my problem anymore." I pressed the intercom. "Elena, please show Mr. Sterling out." Richard stood up. He moved to the door. He paused, his hand on the handle. "Sarah." "Yes." Did you ever find someone else, someone fresher?" I smiled, a genuine smile. "I found myself, Richard, and she is enough." He walked out. The door clicked shut. I was alone in my office. I waited for the crash. I waited for the tears, the anger, the hysterical laughter. But there was nothing. Just silence. Just peace. The ghost that had haunted me for 10 years, the ghost of expired Sarah, was gone. I had looked him in the face, and I had realized he had no power over me. I walked to the window. The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of gold and violet. My reflection in the glass wasn't a tired divorcee. It wasn't a victim. It was a CEO, a mother, a survivor. I took a sip of my water. It tasted sweet. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jason, my son. "Hey, Mom, heard the acquisition went through, congrats. Also, Dad called me. He sounded weird. He said he saw you. He said you saved him." I typed back, "I didn't save him, honey. I just let him go." I picked up my bag. I walked out of my office. "Good night, Ms. Vance," Elena said, smiling from her desk. "Good night, Elena," I said. "Tomorrow, let's start the rebrand for Apex. I want to change the name." "To what?" I thought for a second. "Velocity," I said, "because we're moving forward." That was 5 years ago. Richard moved to Florida. He works at a car dealership. He sends me a Christmas card every year. I don't send one back, but I don't burn his either. I just put it in a box of things that used to matter. Phoenix Strategies. Now, the Phoenix Group is the largest female-led agency in the country. I started a scholarship fund for women over 40 returning to the workforce. We pay for their tuition, their books, and yes, their therapy. Because I know how hard it is to climb out of the hole when the ladder has been pulled up. I am 65 years old now. I have wrinkles. I have gray hair. My knees click when it rains. But I am not expired. I am vintage. I am rare. And I am priceless. To every woman reading this who has been told she is too old, too much, or too late, they are lying to you. Your age is your armor. Your experience is your weapon. Don't let them put an expiration date on your soul. If they close the door, build a new house. If they take your seat at the table, build a new table. And if they leave you, let them go. Because the only person you need to be vibrant for is yourself. Success isn't just the best revenge. It's the only revenge that pays dividends.